welcome back to my channel. So I read 104 books this year and I'm gonna tell you which are my favorite 23 books of 2023. Just before we get starting, I wanna say that reading truly changed my life. So I'm giving you some of my favorite book recommendations if you guys want to start reading. I truly believe I became a more empathetic person since I started reading, just because you get into so many different perspective point of views from the main character, and there are a lot of characters that you might not relate to, but because you're in their thought process and in their head, you understand the way that they act, and it just truly helps you become more empathetic in real life. I don't know, I'm out of breath. And I also feel like I became more patient. I think there's something about just sitting with a book and like just reading that makes you more patient. Also, when say that like you're waiting for a friend or you're in the bus or something like that, that you're just like waiting. I love those times because it means that I can just like take out my book and read. And instead of like going on my phone and I feel like I'm not actually relaxed, I feel like when I'm on a book, I never regret. Like I never feel like it's wasting time. Or when I'm social media, I feel like it is. So I really hope that this video gets you excited to read some of the books. And I also tell you what books I recommend you guys to read if you're a new reader, because my favorite book might not be your book. So I'll tell you guys a little bit about everything. And then just some advice before that is I recommend you guys getting a library card. It's so nice. You get any audiobook, you can get it to your Kindle, you can get like physical books. All those books, these ones, are from my library that I'm currently gonna read, and then I can just like keep renewing them, I can return them, and it's just so nice. Especially when I'm traveling also, I get a lot of books from my Kindle, and I have not paid for any book on my Kindle, which is so nice. My Kindle is also here. This is my favorite possession I own. This is the best investment that I had. I actually got this Kindle for semester at sea. I got it on a news website. It was $20 and it was the best thing ever. I loved it. It's dead right now. I have not charged it, but I loved it so much. With this one, I took it all around Europe and all in semester at sea, and I think I read about 40 books on this thing. It was so nice. The downside about this is that you cannot read at night, so it was not backlit. I had to like actually use a lamp, and it was not waterproof. It was just also like very small, so compared to this one, but this size is honestly perfect. I'll show you with my phone. Look at the size comparison. It's literally the same size and it's thinner, so I could pack it anywhere and take it with me. So I don't know what is the psychology about a Kindle, but it makes you read faster. And also some hacks about the Kindle is that something I love is that whenever you don't know a word, you just like click on the word. Right now it's not connected to the internet and it tells me exactly what word it is, which is so much fun. You can get to read your how much time you have left for the chapter, for the book, and I can go on and talking about why Kindle is so necessary, but I'll get to that into another video. So yeah, let's start with my top 23 books of this year. And an advice, if you want to start reading, it's just like you have to find your book. I believe anyone is a reader, they just need to find their correct book. So I hope these recommendations help you, and just start with like one chapter a night and then see how it goes. If you're not enjoying the book, if you don't feel like you're getting into it, leave it. But I will say leave at least the first 100 pages, because normally the first 100 pages is you're getting used to the book, and after that, if you don't like it, just leave it and go for another one. It's just about finding your book. You also have to read smart book. That's something that a lot of people associate with reading. I feel like you just have to read any book that you like. For me, I always like to read like a smart book per se and a fun book. I love reading smart books by audiobook while I'm working out, or like I'm at work and I'm doing like lab work. Well, I like to read like fun books, especially at night, so like I can rewind from like my day. So I have my tea and let's go through all my favorite books of 2023 in order. So let's start with number 23, which is The Inmate by Frida McFadden. I went into a huge Frida McFadden phase. I think I read about 6 to 7 books of hers, and at one point I just got very used to her setup and like I was able to guess her plot twist. But if you haven't, I really recommend The Inmate. That was the one that I enjoyed the most. That's the only one I rated 5 stars from her. The one thing is I did not try to guess anything from that book. I was just getting surprised, and I really felt like the main character that I was constantly didn't know who to trust, and it was just so much fun. I remember when I read it, I was like, I gasped. I was like so surprised. I remember this moment exactly. I was opening the fridge and I was like, I needed a moment for the plot twist. So I really enjoyed that book, especially during October. It was like the perfect season. Coming up to number 22 is Love Like Barns by B.K. Borisson. If you guys know anything about me, is that my favorite trope is best friends to lovers, so anything that is best friends to lovers is gonna be my favorite book. This was a 5-star for me. I just really enjoyed it. I feel like mostly best friends to lovers is that something happened between them, they stopped talking and then they got back together. This was not like this, which I feel like it makes it a little bit unrealistic, because then people will be like, like, oh, but like, how are you best friends for 10 years and nothing ever happened? I'm just gonna say I can see how that can happen, and I feel like it's just very scary when you have like someone for so long trying to cross that line, and sometimes you just prefer to have them as a friend than lose them, like dating them and then lose them as a boyfriend and your best friend. So I can definitely see how this happens. I feel like this is just such a perfect Christmas rom-com, and I'm not a biggest rom-com for Christmas. I feel like they're very cliche, they're very hallmarky movie, but this one is definitely one that I'm gonna be rereading for every Christmas. And there's this whole series. I have the second book over there that she writes for one season every time. So there's a spring, an autumn, and a summer one. Yeah, highly recommend this one. I loved it so much. The characters, the town, the vibe, all the side characters. Coming out by number 21 is I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCarthy. I highly recommend the audiobook version because it was narrated by Jeanette McCarthy, so I feel like that makes it more realistic. It was so interesting to see her perspective, especially because I grew up watching iCarly, and it's just like a very wide opening, and like a lot of times you really don't know what actors go through, and it was just very mind-blowing, and it definitely helped me be more empathetic towards like the whole situation, because I was also so confused why like she was not in the revival. And then I'm so happy Jeanette McCarthy finally like set boundaries for herself, and I'm so happy she got to publish that book and did receive all the love that it did. Coming at number 20 is 101 Essays That Will Change the Way You Think by Brianna West. This book was so much fun. I kind of wish I bought the book and I could just highlight the entire book. Everything about it was like so wise. It's when an author puts all their best work in just one. It's one of those books that I wish like people just had on their coffee table, and before they go to bed they just read one chapter a day and they just highlight whatever they think, and then maybe they could resonate with that phrase or that essay for that day. Coming at number 19 is The Love Prescription by John Gottman and Julie Gottman. They're both doctors. They have a PhD. So Dr. Gottman is actually very well known about like romance. With his wife they have like an amazing way of like telling, I think, with between 10 to 15 minutes if a couple is gonna last for a long time or if they're gonna break up, which is crazy because basically what they did is during COVID I think they record for a couple of weeks like couples in their day-to-day life, and they analyze every single like tiny thing that they did, like to the small detail. So they analyze everything and what makes a good marriage last. They also wrote the 7 principles for making a marriage work, which was also very good, but I specifically like The Love Prescription too, just because I love the tiny like exercises that they had at the end of each chapter to try with your significant other. And this is one of the books that I definitely want to reread once I have a significant other. I highly recommend to read that one, either if you're in a relationship or if you're getting into one. It's just always good to know those advice. Coming at number 18 is Love Theoretically by Ailey Hazelwood. You guys know my favorite book of all time and the one that made me fall in love with reading is The Love Hypothesis, which actually is an honorable mention because I love that book and I still think about that book so many times. But I will say, I think like that book had a lot of like mistakes. I still love it and it's my favorite. But this book, I think Ailey Hazelwood completely improved her writing, and like everything that was wrong with The Love Hypothesis, she did it so much better in this one. If you want a cool romance, you're gonna get immediately cooked from the beginning. It's very sweet. It's also a signed copy, so I'm very happy about that. It's very similar. Ailey Hazelwood has a very like similar way of writing, like Love Hypothesis, Love on the Brain, and Love Theoretically. They all feel the same, and a lot of people say that. I still love it, and I also love that she writes women in STEM because I'm a woman in STEM, and I think it's so nice that she's also a professor, and a lot of things that she said like I completely understand. A lot of people said that like maybe the lingo, because he had a lot of like physics lingo, and I completely love all the physics jokes but I completely can see how people that are not physics or anything like that could be complicated to like understand. Coming up next, we have at number 17 Want You Love by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is the only love triangle that I will ever want to read. I feel like there's so much more than just love. I feel like it's very a good book to talk about like true love versus the love that you make. The whole plot of the book is that this girl had married like this person, I think for 7 years, for a long time. Then out of nowhere he goes on this mission and his helicopter gets lost and he like disappears. Nobody can find him, so she just assumed he's dead. 5 years go by, she meets someone else that is actually also from her childhood. They get together and they get engaged. While they're engaged, the person come back from, like, he has been living on an island for 5 years and he's back and he's like, I'm ready, let's get back together, and they're already married. So it's just like it really posed into a question like, okay, who love is she gonna choose? And I think that was so interesting. It definitely puts you in a situation that you like at one point you don't even know who to root for. I feel like my before me will have chosen the first guy just because he's the one that knows her and everything, but I also feel like in 5 years is a long time to grow separate from people, and I completely can see how like you can be in love with one person, but if you both grow separately, you're not gonna be the same people, and it's gonna be very hard to like falling back with them. So it's a very interesting book. I highly recommend it to like read it in a book club. I feel like they can have a lot of like conversation topics, and I just love Taylor Jenkins Reid's writing, and that was my first book that I read that was not in the world of the 4 books that she wrote in like the 80s. At number 16 it comes A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson, but just the first book I like it. The other 2 I don't feel like they're necessary. If you're gonna read one, just read the first one, especially if you're trying to get into the murder mystery genre. I think that's a very quick and fast pace. It also feels like you're solving the mystery as a main character with her. It was just a very quick book, and if you're trying to get into reading, I feel like that's a very good book to start with. Again, I did not like the second 2. I don't think they're necessary. I feel like the first one did a very good closure of the book. Number 15 is Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. Any Abby Jimenez book, I have not read that many, but I know the other one is also very good, Part of Your World. And this one specifically, I really enjoyed it. They're both in the medical field, which I love because I want to be in the medical field. But the guy suffers from social anxiety, and I think it's very interesting to see him from his perspective, and then also how the girl tries to like accommodate to him. For example, for a restaurant, he gets very anxious of like not knowing what to order, so she will send him the menu from the restaurant beforehand so he can like choose and then just act as if he was actually choosing in the restaurant. And it's just like such a small moment, and I feel like that could be a really good book that is just like representation, and it's something that you normally don't see in books. The couple is also very cute, and I really enjoyed that book. At number 14 we have The Hawthorne Legacy by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I have that book actually with me. I have only the first one, but in general the series, I think it's a 5-star series for me. It's just the second book was my favorite, which was a 5-star. This is also a 5-star. The third one was a 4 stars, but I wanted to talk specifically about the second one, made it to my list. This is the book I recommend my sisters to start to get into reading. It's very fast paced, the chapters are very short, and I just feel like if you like riddles and if you like murder mystery, has a little bit of a plot of love, you're gonna enjoy this. The second one is just so much more fun because you're already into the story. This is more world building, but again, this is an amazing book and it's YA, so anybody can read it. As number 13 we have Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. This book completely changed my mindset about money. I thought I already had a good mindset about money, and then he completely switched my perspective of how to perceive money in the real world, and it was so interesting. I feel like he has a lot of like good advice, and it's not like you have to follow everything that he said. It's just like interesting seeing money from a different perspective, and I think there's like a before me and an after me after that book, and that will be one book I recommend anyone on reading. I feel like finance are so important for you to like start, the younger the better, and why not start with that book. As number 12 I got The Flat Shirt by Beth O'Leary. I don't know why this book is not more talked about. I really enjoyed this book. It's a rom-com. The premise is amazing. So it's basically that this guy works as a nurse in this geriatric unit, but he only works night shift, and he needed a flat share, like a flatmate. And so this girl, they both live in the same apartment, but he only sleeps during the day and she only sleeps during the night. So they have never met and they only talk to each other via post-its. What I really enjoy about this book is that it felt like 2 completely different people. Normally when they write dual point of views, it just feels like it's written by the same author and it feels like it's just the same person in a kind of way. But in this book, like there was even like, I think the guy used quotation marks. No, I think he used like dialogues to recall the conversation that he had with the girl, while the girl used quotation marks. So they used like, even their style was different, like you can tell that they were just 2 different people. So that was just such a small like detail. I think he also like wrote more about the post-its because I feel like they were more important for him, while for her she like noticed other things in the guy. So it just truly felt like they were 2 completely different people, and that was just such an interesting book to read. And I don't know why it's not more talked about. Maybe it is and I just don't know about it, but I highly recommend that book for anyone that's also interested in romance. At number 11 we have The Bodyguard by Kathleen Senner. It's just basically a rom-com in a book. I don't know how to explain it. It's not like it's life-changing. It's just like so good from the beginning to end. You love it so much. It's also about the girl is a bodyguard to the guy, and I really like how the girl thinks, because when you think of a bodyguard you think someone like big and strong, but I feel like she uses her brain. So she's amazing training like jiu-jitsu and everything, and like personal defense if it come to that, but she says that it doesn't have to, like she just plans everything perfectly, that it never has to come to that, to like actually physical fight. And something I like about Catherine Zenner is that she's a closed-door romance, so you can recommend this to anyone basically in your life. As number 10, I don't have this book because I lent it to a friend and she fell in love with it, so I think she's just gonna keep it. But it's called Love and Other Words by Christina Lauren. This is another best friends to lovers, but they're just so much more than that. It's amazing. It basically goes like these 2 best friends met in like this cabin, and they met every summer, and you get this timeline between past and present, but you don't know what happened, that like it make them stop talking to each other. And once you get to a part, it's like very shocking and eye-opening, and it's just like such an amazing book that I don't feel like I will ever have like that same feeling after I had reading that book. At number 9, I have the Mindfuck series by S.C. Abby. This is a book I never thought I was gonna like because I don't like dark romance or like morally gray characters. However, I thought it was just very interesting, and this is one of those books I don't think I will ever read something like that similar. Like, you know, when there's tropes that they can just create the same thing in a different way, I feel like this is just the one of a kind book. It's basically the romance between a serial killer, a female, and then an FBI agent who is investigating her case. There was some points that I was like crying of anger because the things that she had to go through, and like she explains the reason why she kills people, which I'm not saying killing is any time the solution. And it was just a very fast-paced series. It's a 5-book series, but every book is like 100 pages, so it's like practically like a 500-page book if you think about it. At number 8, we have The Fourth Wing. I'm pretty sure you all guys heard about this book. It became very popular on TikTok, and I can definitely see why. This was my first fantasy book, and I was actually very nervous about it because I'm a very contemporary girly, but I enjoyed this book so much. It's not a masterpiece, it's just very obsessive and addicting. This definitely got me into fantasy, and next year I'm gonna read so much fantasy because of this one. So I feel like this is just a good intro to fantasy. I also make everyone that I know read this, my cousin, my friend, and my sister, which has never read a book, and this was the first book that she read, and she also read Iron Flame, which is very long. Coming at number 7 is The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks by Rebecca Slott. This book I highly recommend it to a lot of people, and especially if you're like in the science field, in the medical field. So basically what it's about is that like Henrietta Lacks is known for her HeLa cells, which I actually worked in research on cancer research for 2 years with her cells, and I had no idea they were from a person. I thought they were rabbit cells, which I felt so ashamed after reading her book, because it basically shows that she had cervical cancer, which is very good for metastasize very quickly. So it was the perfect type of cells to use for research. However, they never asked for her consent after she died or her family. So it was like this whole debate on like her cells got distributed around the world. It helped with a lot of contributions about cancer, but her family was actually very low income and they did not get anything from the cells. So the pharmaceuticals companies were just getting a lot of money from there. However, they never received anything, they never consent to anything. So at that point, it's also when the laws for consenting and like using materials just start to being created. And it's just very important how like she helped a lot in research, but she also like never consent to it. So it's this whole debate in the world of medicine, and I thought it was a very interesting story that a lot of people should know about. Alright, and now we come to my favorite part of the video, which is my 6-star rating. I try to be very picky when I'm choosing for my 6 stars. I don't choose my 6 stars lightly, and about 104 books of this year, I rated 7 books 6 stars, but one is from 2022, which is a Love Hypothesis, so I'm not gonna mention that one. So it's basically 6 books, and these are the books I think about it every once in a while. I never rate a book 6 stars right after I finish it, because a lot of times I really love a book, but looking at it after a minute, I'm like, it wasn't that good. Well, these 6 stars is like I have to leave them at least 6, like a month or something. So starting with the rom-comers. At number 6 is a book that has not been released, so the fact that I'm holding it, it's amazing. I got an advanced reading edition. My friend got it from a Goodreads giveaway. As the title says, the rom-comers, it literally feels like a rom-com. I don't know how else to explain it. It has everything good. Again, Catherine Center is just amazing. She's becoming one of my favorite authors. She's very good with her fans. Like, I think she has like 2 reviews on my Goodreads. She liked an Instagram comment, and then I posted this book on my story, and she posted it on her story, and then she replied to me on my DMs. So I actually talked to her. She's an amazing author. This really feels like a rom-com, a book in a hug. It's just amazing. But what definitely sealed the deal for me was the last page. Literally the last 2 pages. Everything's like highlighted. There's so much wisdom in this, and all the characters in this book are amazing. The female characters has also been my favorite female character in all books. She's amazing. I love her so much. And it's funny because the guy, male interest, I actually hated him at the beginning, and he has such a great improvement and growth character. The dad in the story, the sister, there's just so many characters I really love in this. As you can see, I annotated I'm the blue ones and my friend is the pink ones. We annotated it. She annotated it for me basically, and then I continue it. But this is an amazing book. Coming at number 5, we have The 7 Years Sleep by Ashley Pawson. Oh, this is not it. This is it. This is coming at number 5, The 7 Year Sleep by Ashley Poston. I think about this book way too often. The way that Ashley Poston writes is beautiful. I think about so many of these quotes every once in a while. I also love that she adds, like, she's one of the very few authors that still had names every chapter, which I think is so good. More people should do that. Like, that should be a trend that is coming back. There's just so many quotes. I'm gonna read you guys just a few because they're so cute. It's universal truth in butter, secrets folded into dough, poetry in spices, romance in chocolate, love in a lemon pie. I had entire conversations with people I never spoken a word to. You can say things with food that you can quite with words sometimes. And then my favorite quote of all the book, and that I live by, is new things are scary. They don't have to be. How are they not? Because some of my favorite things I haven't even done yet. This book is just amazing, and the fact that it was based in New York, and also the name from the main character and the nickname that he has for her, I'm not even gonna say it because I don't want to spoil it, is the best name and nickname I have heard in my whole life. And I honestly feel like I would want to name my kid like that. I'm not gonna say anything, but I love that name and that nickname. So beautiful. Coming at number 4 is Educated by Cata. This book is one that, like, if you get anything from this video, is you should read this book. If you don't like reading, just use audiobook, do anything, but please read this book. I honestly believe the world will be a better place if everybody read that book. It just talks about the importance of education, and I truly believe that education is the key of changing the world. It's just such a masterpiece of a book. There's so much knowledge in it, and it's talking about the story about Tara, which she's a champ. The way that she grew up, to the fact that she got into a PhD to write that book, it's truly amazing. And she really shows how education has changed her life for the better and the importance of it. Coming to number 3, we have Arisole and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe. I actually have the version that my friend lent me because it was a book that she recommended me, and I thought it was such a smart book because I was like, Arisole and Dante has a lot of awards. I did not know what this book was about, and I was so into fans of reading it. And then I loved it so much, I bought an Italian version while I learned Italian. This book, it was just like, I think I just really didn't know what it was about. It could be a coming of age, it could be anything. I feel like if you do know what it's about, maybe it wasn't as impactful as it was. No, I feel like it still would. It's just, I mean, it won all these awards because it's so beautifully written. The way that it's written, the way that you understand the characters. It also has a second book. I also really enjoyed it, but it's not like you don't have to read the second book. The first one is already perfect. The second one is more like if you want to know what happens after the ending, like just like how they live life. And I feel like we need more books for like people are just discovering life together. Coming at number 2, we're getting towards the end, is When Breath Becomes Air by Paul Kellan. I hope I'm saying it right. I had that book. It's just in Texas. All the books that you guys see here are books I have not read, kind of, because all the books I already read are back with my parents in Texas. But this book is, if you're in the medical field, you don't even have to be in the medical field. Just like everyone, this book is just so good. It's this memoir about this neurosurgeon that is about to complete his residency, and the first half of the book is very important, specifically if you're like in the medical field. Like, it shows just how important it is, like the role of a doctor, and like how important life is and how precious. It's just very lyrical and very interesting the way that he writes. And then the second half is when he got diagnosed with lung cancer, which is why it's called When Breath Becomes Air. And it's just him trying to discover that role of going from like a doctor to a patient. And this is not a spoiler, but he actually died in real life, so he could not finish the book. So there were like other people finishing the book for him, and I think that just even made it more impactful. It's just such an amazing book, and yeah, I really recommend it to read it. And finally, as number 1, my favorite book of 2023, which actually was a surprise for me, because at the beginning I did not want to read this book. I honestly just grabbed it because it was the only one, and then I went on the trip and I didn't have any other books with me that I just had to read it. But I never thought I was gonna read the book unless for it to be my favorite of 2023. Scary Soto is back. I read the whole series like of Taylor Jenkins Reid. Taylor Jenkins Reid is again one of my favorite authors because it's the only author that I truly believe I'm in the story. I don't feel like I'm reading the story, I feel like I'm part of the story. I don't know, the way that she writes is amazing, and if I ever write a book, I want to write it like hers. I bought the same book for my roommate and I'm annotating it for her. I'll show you guys. I took the cover off just to differentiate them. I even has a gold stamp because again, it's a top book of this year. But Carrie Soto is about this one female character, which is normally people that like you wouldn't like, because she's very opinionated, she knows her value, she's not gonna go for less, she has her ego very high, and she's just like very straightforward. And I honestly loved her. I was like, yes, we need more people write books like this. I hated tennis. Like, out of all the sports that exist in the world, I really hated tennis. I was like, you cannot convince me to play tennis. You can even convince me to play any other sport but tennis. Then I started reading this book. I did not know any rule about tennis, and there's at one point that you get to see the matches, and it's just crazy to me how someone that has never watched one match of tennis, had no idea how it worked, I knew exactly what was happening. Like, it felt like I was watching a movie and I was getting so nervous, like, oh my gosh, who's gonna win? And the fact that I read that, it just blows my mind. Now I'm also very into tennis. Like, I really believe this is the one book that truly changed my life. And I go to play tennis with my roommate once a week. But this is one of those books I wouldn't recommend to everyone. I feel like this book is also very, like, cool once you read all the other books from the series, because this is like the last one, and she's actually like the villain in Malibu Rising, because she's like the girl that the husband was cheating on with the female character on Malibu Rising. So you're like kind of not liking her from the beginning. It's only the first book that made me cry. I don't cry that much with books. I don't cry at all, I would say. I think I cried with like 2 books this year, and this was one of them. Do with that what you will, but this is just such a masterpiece. I will recommend this book is if you like tennis. I mean, if you don't, you still should read it, because I hated tennis and look at me now. And it also has some Spanish in it, which makes it even extra special. And her dad is just my favorite character. Alright, and then as an honorable mention, I have to say The Love Hypothesis, just because that was my favorite book of 2022, and that was a book that rekindled my love for reading. I really stopped reading for like 6 years. I mean, I read like 1 chapter a day, but it wasn't like I actually was in love with reading till I read The Love Hypothesis. That's one book that I recommend for people that want to get into reading and romance. I will say it's not a masterpiece. It has a lot of mistakes. Like, there's a lot of things that I feel like they'll be cringe and awkward, but like for being the first book, I had so much love and like appreciation for that book, and that was my first 6-star book ever, and it's just like it holds a special place in my heart. But that was all for this video. I hope you guys got some recommendations, and stay tuned for this channel. I love reading, and this is just something that I cannot imagine myself stopping anytime soon. So if you guys like keep along with my channel, you will see that in each video that I record, I'm always reading a book. So I'm always going to be talking about the book that I'm currently reading, and I also will do more recaps of the books that I love, and I'm also gonna have more tips on like how to get into reading and all of that. Also, if you guys want to talk to me about books, it's my favorite conversation. I can talk about it for hours. So you can leave me a comment or like go me on Instagram. Also, follow me on Goodreads. I post a lot of reviews on Goodreads, so if you guys can follow me there. Alright, and I guess I'll see you guys on my next video. Bye!